Okay guys, so I'm back with a story time. I actually have 3 story times that I need to film. So if you've watched this one and then the next 2, I'm probably wearing the same shirt because I'm going to try to get them all filmed the same day. Currently Ella is, can't really see her. She's right there. She's currently asleep in her room, so I have her up on our monitors on my phone, which we have 2 security cameras if you guys don't know. We actually have 4, but only 2 of them are hooked up right now. And the one is in her room so that I can see what she is doing while she is in her room, since she is napping in her own room now, and bedtimes. But that has nothing to do with these story times. So this first story time is actually the story time of how I got my license and everything. So if you guys are still interested, then I guess keep watching and I will explain to you guys like the whole permit process and everything for me. So I was 16 and I went down to the DMV and my camera's gonna die. Yay! Hopefully I can get this out before that. So I went down to the DMV when I turned 16 and got my book so I could study. I read through the whole book 2 times. I was so eager to get my permit. My brother failed his tests twice, his permit test, before he finally got his permit. So I wanted to make sure I studied. And you can only miss, I think, up to 3 questions. And the 4th question that you miss, you fail. So I was really wanting to get my permit and start driving and just start learning and everything like that. I passed my first time taking the test. I actually didn't get my permit when I was 16. I was not able to take my test until I was 17. I was very close to turning 17. And then your permit's good for 6 months and you have between that time to take your driver's test, or else you have to renew your permit, or if it's expired for too long, then you have to retake the permit test. And my permit had expired because my mom was ill, my dad never had time to take me driving, and my brother wasn't allowed to teach me because he was not of legal age yet. So my permit expired. We had to pay, I think it was like $5 or $10 to get it renewed. And then my dad was like, well, now you have no choice. I have to, because I'm not just going to keep getting your permit renewed. So the first time I ever went driving, I was so nervous. We went down to this little 4-H park and it's just like a U shaped and then you turn out onto the road. Well, we were driving around that, and the first time I ever drove, I kept 1 foot on the brake and 1 foot on the gas like I was a 2-foot driver, and my dad's like, no, because then your foot gets heavy and you hit the brake, you don't realize, and then you ride your brakes and people behind you are getting mad. So we went around the loop like 4 or 5 times, and then he had me turn around in a parking lot to go the other way just to get kind of used to it. And the one time I turned out onto the road, I was like, a state cop went by and he was staring at me, and I was very, very nervous. Even though I had my permit, my dad was with me, he was teaching me to drive on a road that wasn't too busy. And I was very nervous, and my dad said that he thinks the cop knew that it was like my first time driving, because I had never practiced driving up to this point. My brother, when he was getting his permit, he drove the tractor, so he had practice like with that type of thing. We had like little dirt bikes and stuff in our yard that he would get to ride around, but I was not old enough to use that equipment when we still had that yard. And then we moved into town and we had to get rid of that stuff. So I never really got a whole lot of practice. I never rode the mower or anything like that. So I never had any practice before. And then he's like, well, you're driving home. And I mean, it was only like a 4-mile drive back to our house, but I was still very nervous because I was driving in through town, and I was like, I'm gonna crash, I'm gonna screw this up. And then After that, I would drive to work. I was working at Subway at the time. This is at the time me and Tim had first got together. So I was driving his car. It was a Cobalt. And I would drive, he would ride in the passenger seat, and then he would help me like supervise, I guess, but I would do all the driving. And then it came time for me to learn how to parallel park. That was very interesting. It was late at night because that's when you can really practice at the DMV because they're not doing driver's tests. So, and we didn't want to do. So, sorry about that. I had to charge my camera because it died. Again, Ella is on the monitor. She is down for a nap, and just gonna pick up where I left off roughly because it just cut off and stopped recording because my camera died. So, anyways, I was talking about parallel parking, and we didn't ever do it during the day. And it had been raining a little bit that night, but it wasn't too bad. It was just like sprinkles here and there. So it wasn't anything like, you know, I'm gonna be parallel parking for the first time in the rain, and it wasn't anything like that. It was sprinkling off and on, and I get into the driver's seat and I start like, I pull forward, I start backing in. I'm like, man, it's really hard to turn the steering wheel. And Tim's like, you're just being weak. You're a girl. And he was like messing around. I'm like, no, it's really hard to turn. And he didn't believe me. And I was getting so frustrated with him. I'm like, no, listen, like I've driven this car for so long. I've parked this car. I've just never parallel parked. I was like, something's not right. Something is up and it's hard to turn. And I got in, he went out, like he got out and he checked it and everything, and I parallel parked just the one time. And he's like, you did a pretty good job, you're inside the lines and everything. And then he's like, do you want to drive or do you want me to drive? I was like, I'm getting kind of tired, so I'll just have him drive. And so I got in the passenger seat, and he went to pull out, and he almost hit like the poles that you park in because the steering wheel was so hard to turn. I'm like, I told you, I would not let it go the entire way home. I was like so mad because he thought I was lying. And I'm like, I'm not lying. I told you I wasn't lying. And the power steering pump head went out. So he ended up having to get that replaced. I was like, I told you. Now, I think it was like 2 weeks when I learned to parallel park until my driver's test. And the day of my driver's test, it was interesting. So obviously you go in, you take your little ticket, you wait forever and a half to get your number called. I go up, I tell them I'm here to take my driver's test. And they're like, oh, well, you needed to make an appointment. I was like, I did. And I was told that I needed to take a ticket, and it's not my fault. It's past my appointment time. And that's just what I was told to do. And he's like, oh, okay, who did you speak to? And I told him. He's like, that's why whenever you're here for an appointment to take your test, you just go over to this window, blah, blah, blah. They ended up squeezing me in for an appointment because I was told one thing when I needed to do another. And I get in the car and I parallel park and everything, and I made sure the guy had his seatbelt on. I used like my proper turn signals and everything. Oh my gosh, sorry, excuse me. But when he got out to check, make sure I was in the lines of parallel parking, it dawned on me that I had forgotten to put my seatbelt on. I had only, like where you park the car when you first get in, well, you don't park it. Someone else, like your supervisor, your guardian, parks it behind the building, and then you pull out, you turn around the building a little bit, and then you start parallel parking immediately, like after. So we hadn't even left the parking lot yet, and I was sitting there and he got out, and I like slyly reached over, grabbed my seatbelt, and just ever so slightly just clicked it into place, and I had my seatbelt on, but he didn't realize that what I had done. I don't know. To this day, I don't know if he realized that I didn't have my seatbelt on or if he thought I did. I have no clue. Honestly, I forgot. But I made sure he had his on. And so like I said, I reached over ever so slightly behind me. I didn't even like shift my body, just my arm. And I brought it. And I just ran it down my body and clicked it in real quick. And I was this close probably to being caught. As soon as I got it clicked in is when he opened up the door to get back in. And then he's like, okay, proceed to the stop sign and make a right. So I did. And then he's like, go up to the top of the hill, make another right, and then make an immediate left, and then go straight. And I did everything, used my turn signals properly, everything like that. And I passed. I think I only was docked 1 point because I forgot to have my hands at 10 and 2 or something. It was something so stupid, but I was docked 1 point, but I still passed. And then I went in and got my driver's license, and my picture looked atrocious. I didn't get myself ready that morning. I literally crawled out of bed and crawled to the DMV essentially. I looked tired. I did have my hair down, which was a plus, but yeah. That is the story of how I got my driver's license, and ever since then, obviously, I've been driving and I've gotten better, and I've only ever had like one accident. It wasn't even really an accident. I was taking my mom to the hospital the one night because she was having a lot of pain, and a deer ran out and it literally hit the front fender. Like, it's not like I hit the deer where it hit like the front of the car. I mean, it hit the front, but it was the side. He just kept, I had no way of stopping in time without hurting my mother. Her back she had a lot of back issues and everything. So if I would have slammed on the brakes and missed it, she would have been in so much pain. So I just kept going, and I prayed to God that he would just stop, but he didn't. He ran right into the car, hit, his butt bounced and like hit the door, so you couldn't even open the driver's side door. And then I think he hit once at the back of the car, and then it was done. So that's the only time that I've ever been in an accident. I've never been in a car-on-car accident. I've never crashed a car of any kind. I've never even been pulled over, which is great. But yeah, that's it for this story time. I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned next week for the story time on how the reverse went out in my car. I guess you could call that an accident too, but again, it involved animals. So yeah, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye.